What's going on, y'all? It's Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B. We're here at ISC West 2025 with the Premio crew. My guy Colin Wu. Boom. We're back for some more interviews, deep dives on the major trends that are impacting and shaping the world of security and surveillance. But also, we're going to be learning more about Premio's product line here in their new and renewed booth at ISC West. So, Colin, we're talking the BCO series today. This is y'all's semi-rugged industrial computing suite of products. Folks are used to the 1000, 3000, and 6000. We've also got the new BCO 500 here. So I'll let you do your job here. I won't do your job for you. Tell me a little bit about what we're looking at here with the BCO.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the mark. Is our semi-rugged x86 industrial computer line. As you mentioned, there's the 1, the 3, and the 6, but we just added our brand new BCO 500, which is the smallest form factor that we have. It's kind of rounds out the full family here to give it more of the most smallest form factor, most cost-effective entry-level kind of industrial NUC alternative. Yeah. Very similar to our 1000 in features and kind of I/O and stuff like that, but it's going to be a lot more condensed down that you can see here. So much smaller in footprint. Right. And this kind of rounds out this full family. And this is kind of like the newest in terms of all the families. We've been following this 136 nomenclature, kind of naming in all of our products, but this is kind of the first to really break that mold. And I think it's really unique in a sense that for the BCO to be the first one to kind of have this introduction.
No, I mean, it's exciting to see y'all expand even within your product lines to offer more options. So, this product compared to the others is not as rugged, right? But it's not meant for those incredibly rugged environments. It's meant for the more industrial rugged environments. And it's also perhaps a more cost-effective option compared to the JCO. Is that correct? Okay, so RCO and JCO. So where do you see this BCO series fitting in the larger edge continuum, which we've talked about on other episodes of the show?
The edge continuum, I mean, this very important thing for us because we define that continuum into 3 specific buckets. That helps us narrow down of the complexities at the edge, especially in the user edge, where you have so many different types of people with unique challenges and unique demands. For us to kind of bridge out from there and basically attribute our BCO series, our RCO series, and our JCOs to each bucket. But for the BCO series, it falls to the industrial edge, where it's in controlled environments. It's not as rugged. You're not going to be seeing extremely temperatures, but you're going to see places that are still a little bit harsh in design because you have factory floors. But the main key difference is that for industrial edge compared to the rugged edge is that a lot of places in industrial edge, you're going to have a way to at least access the computer in some sort of way, shape, or form. Whereas with the RCO series, you might have some place that's really remote. So the BCO is, by design, is not as rugged, but it's still enough where it can be 0 to 15 temperature, 9 to 36 VDC, so it still has those unique features of ruggedness, but not as high as what you see in the RCO. Right. And being able to sit in those environments and still function with the fanless design, I think that's what makes the BCO so unique, because you're not paying so much for all the bells and whistles, but you're getting just exactly what you need on board, whether it's I/O, whether it's processing power, or all the way up to high performance GPU capability. So it's able to meet all those demands that people are looking for, that aren't looking to break the bank as well.
And it's important to remember all of these products, even within their use cases, are still very flexible. They're meant to be scalable. They're meant to adapt to the different environments in which they operate, which is important because the security and surveillance industry is undergoing a lot of transformation. More edge applications, more decentralized security and surveillance deployments that coincide with Industry 4.0 tech trends. I'm curious what major trends you see shaping the world of security and surveillance today that make the BCO series relevant.
I think the biggest trend really is, for the BCO specifically, is that proliferation of IoT devices. Yeah. More and more types of IoT sensors, cameras, and all these devices are popping up now because everyone is moving away from the cloud to the edge. And these cameras, these sensors, they're all implementing, newer technology, even with AI being the biggest thing in the world right now. Yeah. So there's all this data being generated, all these different types of things. And the most key thing is how do you connect that device to something that can process the data?
Right.
And that's where our BCO really comes in, or even all of our industrial computers really come in, because the unique feature is that we have all these different types of unique I/O that's on board, whether it's USB, video, legacy COM ports. Right. For us, everything's on board. So being able to connect to all those devices is key, and being able to pull the data, process it right where at the point of data generation. For security and surveillance, that's probably the most important. And in security and surveillance as well, every single second matters. You're gonna have cases where 1 second can mean the difference between something, whether it's dispatch or anything like that. So that time really is crucial for a lot of mission critical applications.
All right, so now let's break down each of the products with a little bit more specificity. We're gonna show off some of the key features and connect the dots with security and surveillance use cases. So let's start with the newest, the smallest, the BCO 500. Tell us a little bit about what we can expect within this edge computer.
Of course. So BCO 500, as I mentioned before, is our newest lineup.
Yeah.
It's very similar to our BCO 1000, where we take the same 3.5-inch SBC, kind of built around that. So the board itself is really similar, is pretty much the same as our 1000. However, some of the features that you're going to see here are going to be very, very similar, except there's going to be something missing. So the DIO that you see here isn't on the 500, but all the IO that's on board, from the LAN, the USB, the display out, and all the antennas that are really similar here.
Yeah. The
most cool thing is that it's a little bit longer because it has the kind of the standard wall mounting and everything. But the key difference is that this is a barrel jack plug in terms of the power. So very different than the traditional terminal block that you're going to see on the 1000 and 3000, 6000. But everything else in terms of its capabilities, processor, which is the Intel 12th generation Alder Lake, is very similar to a 1000, but it's just going to come in the very, very smaller footprint and form factor here. One of the most unique things in the BCO series, especially our BCO 500 right now, is that we always talk about safety and certifications.
Right.
Our BCO 500, our BCO line is UL certified, but our BCO 500 has a unique UL 61010 certification. So that certification in itself allows the BCO 500 to be really reliable, really safe for a lot of access panel, control panels.
Nice.
So that application, those kind of use cases, those applications are really important for people who really need something that's going to be sitting in there where control cabinet is locked or even really hot, and it can run and without any errors or any faults as well.
Right.
So, but as you move into the 1000, the biggest key difference is you're going to get more capabilities. So obviously the DIO, like I said before, but the biggest one is that you're also going to have the ability for wireless connectivity. So 4G LTE in our 3LAN model of our 1000 on here. And you also have the capability for a 2.5-inch SATA storage drive. Nice. So it gives you more storage, gives you a little bit more unique features from the 1000. So as you scale up, you kind of get those. So people who need, storage and wireless connectivity, they're going to have to go for the 1000, move from the 500 to 1000. Yeah. But so as you move from, our fanless mini into a small form factor, middle pack size, you get the 3000. And what's interesting about the 3000 is that it's also built around a standard form factor industrial motherboard. This case is going to be the mini ITX board. So as you scale up, usually you're going to get more features. So 3000, everything on board as well, USB, legacy COM, antenna holes, DIO. But you can see in comparison to our 1000, a lot more in terms of LAN and USB and display out. So everything that you're going to see here is just going to be kind of growing in numbers. And that's middle of the pack, and it's really balanced in terms of everything it's giving you. So for security and surveillance, in this case, you have a lot more cameras or USB cameras. You can support a lot more with the 3000.
Great.
But then ultimately, if you need that really big boy, really big,
building
up the long, I like to call it the long boy, really.
Yeah,
it's really long. But our
Takes
6000,
2 hands to pick up. Yeah.
2 hands, two hands. But if you need the high performance, if you're really running something that's going to be using something with AI,
right,
6000 really comes in. So same motherboard with our mini ITX, but it's expanded to allow for GPU integration, which you see right here.
Right.
And that is the way the difference in the chassis is when, because the 3000, 6000 use the same board.
Gotcha.
But in terms of how we get the PCI expansion for the GPU, is that we have a unique gold finger that allows us to kind of sit like this and allow the BCO 6000 to be very slim in height.
Nice. Slim in height, but wide in possibilities and expansion.
It's really unique too, because people really like this because, sometimes computers, they're too tall it can cause a lot of issues, especially in space-constrained applications. So that slim kind of feature allows us to kind of just sit very flush with the other things, especially in space-constrained like process panels or cabinets, and that's gonna be a big key advantage.
So last thing, Colin, and thank you for that breakdown, is, again, we've already been talking about some use cases. Again, this is semi-rugged edge computing for industrial use cases where, yes, it's still rugged, but it's not necessarily, the most extreme environments. I'm curious if you have any practical case studies or use cases that come to mind of any of this BCO product line at work for the evolving security and surveillance industry, especially how you mentioned earlier, these being that connective tissue for the expansion of IoT nodes, right? I'm curious what you're seeing that's really catching your eye and making you excited about this product in action.
I think one of the use cases recently we had was not necessarily security surveillance, but definitely in terms of monitoring.
Okay.
The biggest, they were using our BCO 1000 because of its actual small form factor design, and they're in a factory floor in more of like a boiler setting, like where there is some ruggedness to it, but it's enough where they're sitting in cabinets, they're sitting in a controlled place, and it's actually monitoring the overall full system, their full facility, and it's keeping track and making sure everything is secure. There's no intrusion or anything like that, because in that environment it gets hot. So, for them to kind of have their software integrated with the platform and everything, for them to monitor, for them to keep everything remote, managed and safe, that's where the BCO 1000 really shines as a use case.
All right, well, this is a classic product line, flexible, ready to be deployed in a cost-effective fashion as well. Colin, if folks want to learn more about the BCO, where can we point them so that they can weigh the options and determine what's best for their rugged edge computing use cases?
So all of our information, you guys can find it online at our website, premioinc.com. We have our full product solution guide all the way down to everything you can learn from the key features of our BCO series and everything else as well. So please visit our website, premioinc.com.
Perfect. premioinc.com. Colin Wu, thanks for the time, man. All right, we'll be back with some more one-on-one interviews here at the Premio booth, showcasing the variety of rugged edge computers that are powering the future of security and surveillance at ISC West 2025. I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and we'll catch you on some other one-on-ones.